The Galactic Council chamber had never been so silent. Ambassador Zekthara's tertiary breathing apparatus wheezed nervously as she stared at the holographic display floating above the central dais. The message had arrived 3 standard cycles. Ego, transmitted on frequencies so ancient that most civilizations had forgotten they existed. "Play it again," commanded High Counselor Vexnari, her crystalline form refracting the chamber's soft luminescence into prismatic patterns across the walls. The hologram flickered, and once again, the impossible transmission filled the air. Static crackled through speakers designed for a dozen different atmospheric compositions, followed by a voice speaking in what the translation matrix identified as Terran Standard. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Fleet, transmitting on all emergency frequencies. We've detected massive void swarm movement toward the Andromeda Relay. Estimate arrival in 47 standard hours. All council ships are advised to withdraw to minimum safe distance. We'll handle this." The message ended, leaving the assembled delegates in stunned silence. Zekthara's manipulator arms twitched involuntarily. The Void Swarm, the galaxy's oldest nightmare, creatures of living entropy that consumed entire star systems, hadn't been seen for over a millennium. The Council had assumed they were extinct, or perhaps had moved beyond the galactic rim to terrorize some other cosmic neighborhood. "Impossible," whispered Counselor Thranks through his translation collar. "The humans have been in space for barely 2 centuries. Their ships are crude metal boxes held together with what they call duct, tape, and wishful thinking. Ambassador Zekthara had met humans before, during trade negotiations in the Outer Rim territories. They were strange creatures, bipedal, warm-blooded, and disturbingly adaptable. They came from what the Galactic Classification System designated as a Class 2 death world, though most council members assumed this was an error in the database. Surely no sapient species could evolve on a planet where the very water fell from the sky as a corrosive solvent, where massive electrical storms could level cities, and where tectonic shifts regularly reshaped continents. Yet here they were, claiming they could face the Void Swarm alone. "High Counselor," Zekthara ventured, her voice barely above a whisper. "Perhaps we should take their warning seriously. The Andromeda Relay is critical to our supply lines." Vexnari's form pulsed, with what Zekthara recognized as barely contained agitation. "You suggest we trust these Deathworlders? Their technology is primitive. Their ships can't even generate proper energy shields. They use actual armor plating like some pre-space civilization." The chamber's main viewer chimed, indicating an incoming priority transmission. The image that appeared showed Admiral Chen herself, standing on what appeared to be the bridge of a human vessel. Behind her, Zekthara could see crew members moving with practiced efficiency, their faces set in expressions of grim determination. "Council delegates," Admiral Chen began, her voice steady despite the obvious stress of the situation. "I know you're receiving our transmissions. We've got eyes on the swarm now, bigger than anything in the historical records. We're talking about a force that could sterilize half the galaxy." She paused, glancing at something off-screen before continuing. "I also know what you're thinking. We're the new kids, right? Barely out of our own solar system, still figuring out which end of a plasma rifle to hold. But here's the thing about humans. We've been dealing with extinction-level threats since before we could walk upright." The view shifted to show the tactical display behind her. Zekthara's respiratory system seized as she saw the scope of the Void Swarm, thousands upon thousands of the writhing shadow-dark entities, each one capable of consuming a starship whole. We've faced ice ages, supervolcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, plagues, and wars that should have ended us a dozen times over, Chen continued. Every single one of us is descended from survivors. And now, well, she smiled, and Zekthara shivered at the predatory gleam in the human's eyes. Now we've got the tools to make survival an art form. The transmission cut to an external view of the human fleet. Zekthara counted perhaps 200 ships, a fraction of what the Council could muster, and yet there was something about their formation, the way they moved with precise, deadly intent, that made her primary heart skip a beat. Counselor Thranks was already pulling up tactical analyses. Their weapon systems are kinetic-based, he said dismissively. Crude projectile weapons and chemical explosives. The Void Swarm's bioarmor will absorb such attacks with ease. Perhaps, Zekthara murmured, but she found herself thinking about the human trade delegations she'd encountered. They'd been polite, even friendly, but there had been something unsettling about them. The way they moved suggested constant vigilance, as if they expected attack at any moment. The way they spoke of their homeworld's weather had made her species' natural disasters sound like gentle breezes. The tactical display updated again, showing the human fleet engaging the leading edge of the Void Swarm. What happened next would be debated in xenobiology classes for generations to come. The humans didn't use energy weapons or exotic matter disruptors. Instead, they fired what appeared to be simple metal projectiles, but at velocities that should have been impossible for ships of their size. The kinetic rounds punched through Void Swarm bioarmor like tissue paper, and where they struck, explosions bloomed that seemed to burn with the fury of young stars. "Nuclear weapons," whispered Thranks, his translation collar barely able to convey his shock. "They're using nuclear weapons as standard ordnance." But it wasn't just the weapons. It was the way the humans fought, with a coordination born of species-wide trauma, with tactics that turned their apparent technological disadvantages into lethal strengths. They used their ship's armor plating not just for defense, but as weapons themselves, ramming Void Swarm creatures at velocities that turned both vessels into brief, brilliant stars. Admiral Chen's voice crackled over the comm again. "Council ships, you might want to back up a bit more. We're about to try something that even we think is a little crazy." The human fleet regrouped into a tight formation, and suddenly every ship's reactor output spiked beyond what should have been survivable levels. Zekthara realized what they were planning just as space itself seemed to catch fire around the largest concentration of Void Swarm entities. "Stellar ignition torpedoes," Chen's voice explained with casual professionalism. "We figured if you can't burn the parasites out, you might as well turn their whole neighborhood into a sun." When the light faded, nearly a third of the Void Swarm was gone. The remaining creatures, faced with an enemy that fought like the universe itself was trying to kill them, began to retreat. High Counselor Vexnari's form had gone completely transparent, a sign of absolute shock among her species. "How?" she managed to ask. Admiral Chen's image reappeared on the main viewer, her expression now almost apologetic. "Look, I know we're the newcomers here, and our tech probably seems pretty rough around the edges. But here's what you've got to understand about humans. We didn't evolve in a nice, safe environment like most of you folks. We're from a world that's been trying to kill us since day one. So when we finally got off that rock and found out there were things out here that want to kill us too." She shrugged. Well, it felt like coming home. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in profound silence. Finally, Zekthara found her voice. "I believe," she said quietly, "we should consider upgrading humanity's classification status." "To what?" asked Vex Nari. Zekthara's manipulator arms gestured toward the tactical display, where human ships were methodically hunting down the remaining Void Swarm entities with terrifying efficiency. "To whatever classification comes after Deathworlder," she replied. "Because I think we just discovered that sometimes it takes monsters to fight monsters. And we're very, very lucky they're on our side."